What happens when one of the world's most watched women, just days removed from a frightening health scare, steps back into the spotlight in one of the most spiritual yet unconventional stages of modern pop culture? On a warm California morning, where the desert sun rises over Indio and music lovers gather for the spectacle known as Coachella, Kim Kardashian's sudden arrival, alongside Kanye West at his Sunday service, electrified the air. The whispers spread quickly. Was this an act of devotion, of resilience, or of spectacle? What was she proving, not only to the crowd but to herself, as she stood there at Kanye's side? The scene was unlike any other. Coachella, typically synonymous with neon lights, flower crowns, and pounding bass lines, was transformed into something sacred under Kanye West's vision. The Sunday service had become a cultural phenomenon of its own, a mix of gospel, artistry, fashion, and faith wrapped together. Yet, it was Kim Kardashian's presence, so soon after her health scare, that turned this particular Sunday into a headline for the ages. Cameras flashed, voices hushed, and a palpable sense of drama hung in the air as she walked onto the grass fields of Indio, dressed in muted tones that reflected both reverence and resilience. The health scare had been the talk of the week. Rumors swirled, speculation spread, and fans around the globe held their breath. Kim Kardashian, the woman who built an empire from reality television, beauty lines, and relentless media presence, was suddenly vulnerable. Her health, something money and fame cannot entirely protect, had reminded the world that behind the fame was a human body, subject to fragility. So when news broke that she would join Kanye West at Coachella's Sunday service, the narrative shifted instantly from concern to anticipation. People wanted to see her, to measure with their own eyes if she appeared frail, strong, or somewhere in between. And there she was, standing among the choir robed in soft pastel colors, her figure blended into Kanye's carefully curated aesthetic of purity and unity. But make no mistake, every eye knew where to look. Kim Kardashian wasn't just a guest. She was a symbol, a living reminder that personal struggle and public spectacle often collide on the same stage. The choir sang in harmony, their voices carrying over the desert winds, filling the wide-open fields with melodies that blended gospel tradition and contemporary energy. Kanye, standing in the center, radiated intensity. His vision for Sunday service had always been larger than life, a blend of spiritual revival and performance art. And now, with Kim by his side after her health scare, the symbolism deepened. To the audience, it was more than a service. It was a moment of rebirth. Observers whispered among themselves. She looks strong, some said. Others murmured, is this her way of showing she's okay? The health scare lingered like an invisible shadow, shaping how every gesture, every smile, every slight movement of Kim's was interpreted. In truth, her presence at Coachella's Sunday service was as much about personal reassurance as it was about public image. For Kim, walking into that desert gathering was both a test and a statement. She would not let fear define her. As the music swelled, Kanye guided the energy with his usual magnetism. Choir members swayed, instruments pulsed with rhythm, and the atmosphere was transformed from festival chaos to something approaching transcendence. The juxtaposition of Coachella's commercialism with Kanye's quasi-religious spectacle only heightened the drama. Yet again, Kim Kardashian's role took center stage, not in words but in being. Her silence, her composure, her decision to simply stand and witness, carried a weight heavier than any speech. Documenting this moment required watching not only the stage but the crowd. Tens of thousands stood in awe, phones raised, capturing what felt like history. The hashtags flooded instantly. Kim joins Kanye, Sunday service at Coachella after the health scare. Every angle was photographed, every second live-streamed, ensuring that this intimate yet public spectacle traveled beyond Indio to every corner of the globe. For those who couldn't be there, it was as if they were. And for Kim, this was both comforting and daunting. The world was watching not out of idle curiosity, but with a collective hope that she was okay. In her face there was resilience. Her health scare may have rattled her, but here she stood, next to Kanye, bathed in the golden California light, projecting an image of endurance. To some, it was an act of faith. To others, it was a calculated step in controlling the narrative. And yet, the emotional undertone was undeniable. This was a woman reclaiming her space after vulnerability threatened to take it from her. Kanye's voice broke through the air, guiding the choir, commanding attention. But often, as cameras panned across the desert congregation, the lens returned to Kim. The narrative was Kanye alone. It was the unity of both, standing side by side in a moment that blurred the line between personal faith and public performance. The desert heat bore down, but it only seemed to intensify the spiritual fervor of the event. Choir members raised their hands skyward. The music reached crescendos that made spines tingle, and a sense of collective energy rippled through the audience. And there was Kim, present, calm, and radiant in her restraint. The health scare of days before was not erased, but it became part of the story, a dramatic arc that made her appearance at Sunday's service even more compelling. One could almost feel the narrator's voice deepen in that moment. In the shadow of fragility, resilience takes center stage. After a health scare that shook headlines, Kim Kardashian joins Kanye West at Coachella's Sunday service. And in that desert gathering, she reminds the world that even icons can stumble, but what matters most is how they rise again. Throughout the hours of worship and performance, the symbolism grew stronger. Sunday's service wasn't just about Kanye's creative genius. It was about family, about unity, about reclaiming strength. Kim's presence after her health scare elevated the service into a cultural turning point, blurring boundaries between vulnerability and power, between personal healing and public storytelling. When the music faded and the desert winds grew softer, people left Coachella with something more than just another festival memory. They left with the imprint of a moment where Kim Kardashian's personal struggle intersected with Kanye West's artistic vision. They had witnessed more than a performance. They had witnessed a testimony. And as the sun dipped behind the California mountains, one thing was certain. Kim's choice to join Kanye at Coachella's Sunday service after her health scare wasn't just about showing up. It was about redefining presence, proving strength, and reminding the world that resilience, when displayed under the desert sky, becomes unforgettable.